And welcome everyone to our first official University of Ottawa Esports panel here. My name is Zura Adam. I am your host for today. Alongside me, I got InVerum on the top left there. Directly above me is, of course, Professor Thomas Burelli, otherwise known as Professor Boo Boo. And on the top right there, I've got Caleb Gloob, the director of NECC. Of course, just want to give you a little bit of an introduction to myself. I've been a member of the University of Ottawa esports community for the past couple of years. Started out actually by reaching out to a couple of the admins asking if I could cast some of their League of Legends games. It was just when I was getting into the scene, and from there it's taken off. I've been able to work with Unified. I've been able to work for the CLOL Top 32 broadcast in the past, as well as Proving Ground. So I'm incredibly honored to be the host with some of these magnificent guests here as well. But of course, the topic of today is why you should join your school's esports club. And just as a preface, the clubs that these schools have are just magnificent tools to network, to meet people that are like-minded as yourself, not only at our school, but across the country, across North America, across the world, even really providing a basis for people to have a sense of community. We just want to talk about what it means to do so and what we can do to improve esports clubs in the future. So before I say too much here, I just want to introduce our guests here. I'll actually have them introduce themselves. So, Enverum, we'll start with you, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and what you do, how you got into the esports scene, all of that stuff.
For sure. Happy to be here. I actually graduated from the University of Ottawa back in 2015, I think. So it's fun to be back getting involved with my alma mater here. I started casting myself also in university, got involved back in the first ever Heroes of the Dorm event as a player. I think that I'm not even sure if the club was really a thing back then. I think there was like a League of Legends department, but a couple of us sort of got involved. And from there, I ended up working as a professional caster, ended up going out to Los Angeles, working for Blizzard. From there, I transitioned into working at ESL. From there, I really transitioned to working for ESL, came on board as a contractor for them, as an in house commentator, product manager, and am now the head of marketing for North America for ESL and DreamHack. So, bit of a progression from amateur caster to marketing director in the last 5 years, 6 years. But it's been an absolute blast and a journey. So, happy to be here.
Awesome. Next, Professor Borelli.
Yeah, hello. So I'm a law professor at the University of Ottawa. And to be honest with you, I started teaching environmental law. But at the moment, I'm also teaching video game law. And I'm quite happy about this because I was an avid gamer before I started uni. I had to stop to be successful with my studies. I'm not saying you cannot be successful in playing at the same time, but I could not. But now I can play more. And I can actually tell my colleagues that I'm doing field work on the Rift. Well, more seriously, I just want to say that the video game law field is like a fast-growing one. Very few people are specialized in this field, so it's quite interesting to explore. There is a lot of things to see. Every day, I like making new discoveries. So I started with environmental law, and I feel I will just like keep going with video game law and esport because like there is so much to do.
And of course, Caleb.
Yeah, I've got a little bit of a weird story. I grew up in the south end of the GTA, so I've born and raised Canadian as well. But kind of fell into esports a little bit odd when I tore my ACL. So had a weird little stint where I was playing semi-amateur Fortnite as well as semi-amateur Overwatch at the same time, and kind of went all the way around. Eventually found my way into collegiate esports, and stepped myself into role at the NECC, which turns into now the league that uOttawa plays for, but also another 250 schools play for. So kind of all over the place doing a whole bunch of other things. Now it's kind of just turned into this kind of, okay, I'm falling into situations, but learned a ton of stuff over the time that I've been in esports, as well as what I will be learning over the next few years and all the stuff that I'm kind of doing and can't release yet kind of things. But Nationals coming up. uOttawa is currently playing on the NECC stream, so kind of want to go watch that as well. That is an option too.
For sure. So I guess first question, we'll start on the left, of course, with Environment again here. But on most campuses, you will find many esports teams for a variety of titles. Oftentimes, the student involvement will stop there. What other efforts do you believe students need to put in to turn their club teams into more of a student-run program?
I think it's a pretty broad question. I think so. I think there's sort of two main components. If you so, a couple things here. If your goal is to legitimately take the skills that you are learning as part of your collegiate club and actually trying to use them to get a job in esports, there are a couple of sort of clear paths forward with that. I would say one of them is sort of on the marketing admin side of things. So working in the more operations element of this, coordinating your team, their social media, their online presence, live clipping, all of those sort of hard skills that you need going into marketing and esports. I think there's the broadcast side of things. So there's putting on broadcasts at your school, whether it be in a LAN environment or working with these remote setups that are becoming more and more common now. And then obviously there's on the player side, the sort of nuts and bolts of, hey, actually maybe wanting to pursue things as a professional player down the road. So I think there are a lot more than just necessarily going in and sort of playing and having fun. There are legitimately avenues and roads you can take to sort of elevate that, but especially on the business and admin side of things, having a really, sort of solid background that you can go back and show like, hey, I worked on this, or hey, I did this. I know when I'm looking at resumes, when folks are applying to things and they say they have collegiate esports experience, that's really what I want to look for, especially on the marketing side. Like, show me the accounts that you ran. Hey, show me viral tweets that went off. Show me some fun interactions that happened on a stream that you were able to capture and highlight. Those are the kind of things that have value sort of further out as well.
Yeah, and I guess as a follow up to you, InVerum, again, from your experiences at uOttawa and the changes that you see from then until now, what steps do you think we as an example could make to push our current status as one of the biggest clubs even further, maybe even building into a program?
I mean, when I started, we rented a boardroom in DMS and had like a BlizzCon watch party. And that was sort of like the biggest thing that we did back in like 2014 or whatever. So anything you're doing that's bigger than that is already great. But I think it's proving to faculty as much as anything, because transferring it into a program, they need to look at it as a recruitment tool. If they don't see it as a recruitment tool, they're not going to see value for the program. They're not putting money towards scholarships, etc. So I think for you, it's being able to show the value and being able to quantify the value that you have, saying, hey, look, here's the uOttawa name on stream up against these. Hey, we're on stream, in CLOL or whatever for 10,000 CCVs. These have value. They see, we're going to be able to attract a higher caliber of student or more students, because like they would with any traditional sport, people are going to want to come here just for this. So I think if you can do a good job of sort of quantifying the metrics that you do have and being able to present those to faculty in a meaningful way, that's how you're gonna be able to continue to grow the program even more and get more funding, build out maybe the bigger land space, and then it just will snowball from there.
And then, Professor Bubu, as a member of the faculty, how do you think that the faculty can aid in running some of these student run programs?
I think, like, for instance, like the event of today is a great example of what you can do and how you can add value to the club, which is not only about gaming. So, like having this kind of workshops, having this event where you can actually target the general public, you can explain them what it is, how it works, you can talk about careers. I think it's quite good. And I think like this kind of event could be on a regular basis. And I think it's already what you have prepared. So I'm really excited. And I think it's great. And it could be like about the career, but it could also be like workshops, like to make the club more known. I'll be honest with you, if you offer like coaching sessions in person, I would be so happy to come. You know how much I need it. So it's things you could do, like, and I'm thinking about coaching for players. Could be workshop about how to broadcast, how to produce content. So I agree with my colleague, like producing high quality content is really good, because through the club you have a lot of opportunities to create videos, to create like many content that then you can show people, and it's your portfolio. So it's quite good. And I also think, and it because it's like now it's 2 to 3 years that we are talking about this, like to get your own space. And I know that you don't have control over this, but like you need your own space to be like somewhere on campus and people know you. And I think like we have discussed it already, like with some of your members. There are several ways to do this, many ways actually, and one of it is to get like more sponsorship, and it's something I want to work on with you guys like this summer maybe. And so my point here is you also need to find allies inside and outside the university. So I see you have your alumni coming back, it's great. You need also like professors and people from the staff to help you like build this program and convince people that it should be developed. But it has already developed a lot in the past years and months.
For sure. And for you, Caleb, sort of to follow up on all of this, how do you see the impact of these clubs in leagues like your own, like in NECC, where some of these programs are scholarship programs, some of them are more student-run programs. What's the impact that you see from these student-run programs in your league?
uh, Statistically, they're 50% of our population in the ACC, and that's based off of like years and years of development, but also our divisional structure that helps out kind of build out these programs. So, give you a good example: uOttawa Gold and uOttawa Garnet should never play against each other because statistically, those two teams are very different and much different compete levels. And in all honesty, seeing the kind of impact of having these clubs get into their schools and the retention rates gained through these programs is something that is just amazing to watch. We've seen on campuses a retention rate raised by about 5 to 12% just through club programs, and when you add in varsity, it starts to go up to 25 to 30% of a retention rate growth, right? And those stats, like there's a University of Michigan that I'm forgetting the name of right now, but they have a 220% retention rate, which means for every student they have, they're getting another student at 0.2 for the next year of school. It's just amazing stats in esports, but it all stems from these clubs start as clubs, right? And then they turn into varsity programs, and then they take their steps to develop into varsity programs. But InVerum and Prof. Boo both said this, and there's a couple different ways to go about this, but the big things are statistics. You need to know what the value you bring to university is. And year over year, uOttawa Garnet has at least 600 people in their Discord actively engaging with their club in the last few years, right? And then you need to go one step further and show the value of on-campus engagement and what that looks like and how people are getting involved with the club year over year. And all those things start taking the steps into, okay, when can we get the space? How do we get the space? How do we get sponsors to help make sure that that space makes sense for the university, but also show the value of the university, that each of our students cost this on average, right? If we have 600 students, well, that's what we're making year over year for the university, and we're doing that without scholarships. What could we do with scholarships, right? And all of these things kind of layer into the whole kind of pie of getting the faculty on board and getting those people to help fight the battles that you can't fight, because it's a big politics game in collegiate. So making sure that you can get those next steps and all those good little pieces, I guess.
Sure. And I guess the environment, Professor Boo, do you have anything to follow up on that with?
Not really, but I just like, I mean, maybe it's just a belief, but I feel that there are so much money like to raise. Just in Ottawa, we have so many companies, like video game companies or just Shopify. We have a lot of actors that we could reach out and ask them like to sponsor the team and to ask them to invest into the team and like maybe something bigger like than just maybe a space, So and I know you have some sponsors, but like talking about bigger ones, talking about like a big partnership with the university, I think it's not like something that has been done. And there is a huge potential. Like Quebec, Ontario, and British Columbia are the 3 biggest provinces for video games. So there are people like, and I think I told you like before, there is a company in Ottawa we met like a year ago or 2 years ago. The company was eager to meet you guys because the company is like, it's a video game studio and they want like to expand. So they need people to work for them. So they were eager to meet the players and the people involved in the club because it's potential employees for them. So it's something like that needs to be worked on, I feel.
For sure. And Verum, anything to follow up on that with, or?
Nah, I'm good. Those are some great points. Those stats on retention I did not know those, and those were super compelling. I think that should be shouted from the rooftops a little more because it's really cool.
Yeah, perfect. So on that note, I guess we can move on to the next question here. So as most of us in the club are as casual gamers, one may not see the benefit of investing themselves into more of a competitive esports club. We'll start with Professor Boo Boo this time, but how do you think that a competitive esports club can be sort of marketed for everyone and not just for, the highest level, the skilled gamers in that sense?
I feel the club has way more opportunities than just gaming and gaming at a high level. I know you, Adam, you do a lot of casting, and I think it's also because of the club. So you could learn like so many skills through the club. I know for my students, like lawyers, like just talking with you guys and learning like how it works in terms of organizing a tournament, organizing a league, contract for a player. It's a big field work where you can learn so much. So it's just like yeah, it's not only about gaming, and my level in League of Legends. I will never make the A team, of course. So, but it's so nice to speak with you and to learn about how it works, and I really enjoy it as well. And I don't need to be at a high level to enjoy it. So, I think, and you can also I really believe that you can transfer all the skills and knowledge that you learn at the university. You can easily transfer it to the esport field. You could be in health, you can be in law, you could be in engineering. It's easy to transfer, I feel. So it's just like, yeah, easy to transfer, I would say. I will stop here.
And I guess just from your own experiences, right, as someone who has taken part in our events in the past, as one of those casual gamers, we can say, how was your experience? Sort of describe to the viewers and everyone exactly how you felt taking part as sort of one of the casual gamers.
Adam, it was brutal. I'm still so mad at Gambi. I mean, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, to be honest with you, it was amazing to be part of this event. I like to play sport. I do a lot of badminton, and it's always nice when you have like a top player, nice enough to play with you and to show you what it means to be like at a high level. Of course, I cannot compete, but it's always nice like to see that the people taking the time to do this, because I know it can be, if it's every day, it's boring, but one time it's fine. So I was really glad and honored, I would say, to play with you, because I mean, the level is so high. I always tell people, for me, when I play with you, I feel you're cheating, and I know you're not. So it's quite nice to have this event. I just hope that people are not mad that I'm playing with them. That's why sometimes I don't apply to play the tournament. But no, it was amazing, and people usually are super nice. So it's quite good. It's an amazing experience, because I don't know where I would have this otherwise. And I want more. Again, if you do like workshop, and by workshop and coaching, I mean paying for it. It's something I would love to,
Interesting. Caleb, I guess next to you as sort of someone who runs a league that is based on that, how do you think that the impact of these competitive esports clubs can trickle down to the casual gamers in the same sense?
Yeah, I'll say something. I mean, going back 2 years ago, when actually the first time I kind of met uOttawa Garnet, and their team, uOttawa and their teams, like I didn't know what the impact of a divisional structure in collegiate would be, because at the time there wasn't one. The worst teams would play the best teams, and Andrew pretty much told me, if you do this and do it the way you're saying you're doing this, I will be with you forever. like, but it kind of started to show when we set up our top division, we set up all that kind of stuff, and uOttawa Garnet was always in that kind of top division of gameplay. And it was like, great, you've got a top team, and you're coming from a club program, and you're always having a top team, so that's nice. But what's the rest of you guys doing? And uOttawa has 5 Rocket League teams right now competing in the NECC, and like they're League of Legends and all, like they're all over the place. But it's not just the highest level that gets that ability to compete. And through this divisional structure that we're starting to see all of collegiate follow, NACE, ECAC, both set up a divisional structure this year. There's going to be another one coming from UGC next year. CEA is going to be doing something as well. You're going to start to see these club programs get the ability to have a competition that is at, and Prof. Boo, because you've said it before, at that level that you compete at, so that every player feels like that, not just you and the one other guy that shows up to the LAN event. It's every single player in collegiate that kind of gets into that level of kind of competition where it's like, it's really challenging for them, but you learn a lot of stuff because now you're playing at that level consistently week over week with teams that can compete at that kind of general level, but that want to get better, and that's set up in a conference model so you can see other teams in the region that are doing the same kind of things and learning from the same kind of teams. It's just one of those things you're starting to see where it's like, we're turning this whole mindset of collegiate esports has to be the best of the best, and you have to be in this C-level bracket that's currently going on, or at that high level gameplay and winning those events to be considered a good team. Now you're a good team by showing up to your matches, not forfeiting, continually having a good social media presence, continually bringing back students year over year. It's turned into this whole, we're building out a very similar divisional model to the NCAA on a large scale, not just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 programs. And that's what's really cool to see, because uOttawa Garnet has had that for years, and they've done it at their LAN events. The CSGO LAN event that I showed up to 6.5, 7 years ago, it was one of the first times that I saw what uOttawa could show, and it's continued from there and what they've done. I'm just going to say it. Ottawa is probably one of the best clubs in North America, and it shows with how much they care about every single player that asks to join their program.
For sure. And I guess for you, InVerum, do you feel some of the similar sentiments as the other two panelists, or give us your experiences as well in terms of how the competitive esports can influence the casual gamer per se?
Well, it's funny because when I think about collegiate esports clubs, I don't even think the gameplay is. I wouldn't even probably put in the top three of most important things. I think the community, first and foremost, is the most important aspect. I mean, I know for me, just finding other people who played games. I mean, keep in mind this was back in 2013, 2012, or whatever. But finding other people on campus who I could hang out with and play games with, what that in and of itself was like the value right there. This, and this is back, I guess, in the early days of CLAW. I'm not even sure it wasn't even called CLAW back then. And it's so interesting because if you say there's 600 people in this Discord server, like 5 of them are going to be, 7 of them are going to be on the team. For every other person, I would say they're more in that casual. I mean, sure, you're going to have multiple iterations and multiple teams and stuff, but for me, it's the community and it's those soft skills that you build around it, because then you might go, okay, cool. I've got some experience playing in a competitive environment. Yes, it's more around my skill level, but then it might encourage you to get involved. Maybe I can actually do something with esports, and then that's where I look at it. It's because, okay, how do we get more involved? Do I want to get, maybe I'm never going to be the best player, but do I get involved in production? Maybe I get involved in league ops and administration. Maybe I get involved, on the casting side. I think for me, when I look at the value of these collegiate clubs, yes, the play is fine, but let's be honest. No one's, if you have the option to watch LCS or CLO, you're gonna watch LCS. Like, people aren't really going to collegiate to watch the gameplay other than to cheer on their friends and kind of for the memes. They're really going for the community aspect of it. And I think that needs to be consistently, like, first and foremost, the element that's being pushed.
Yeah, and Professor Boo Boo, you have something to follow up with that with?
Yeah, because I think the community part is very, very important. And like, you are young, you are at the university. University is like a social experience as well. So it's true that you can meet like amazing people during these years, and these people will probably be, for some of them, your colleagues, at some point. So you can build like strong relationship, strong friendship, strong partnership with these people, and it's a great moment to do it because you have time. You have time to waste, like to spend evenings, to spend like your days with these people, and it's true, like this community aspect is quite important, and you have something very important here as well.
Caleb?
InVerum quickly touched on this, but I want to go and clean this up a little bit. The fact that esports has so many jobs that are coming up in this massive industry that we're going through, and he quickly touched on just a few, like 4, maybe 5. I want to just say Andrew's also in this call right now and listening to everything that we do, or Juicy Vinyl in chat. He is in a spot of a director of an esports program where he's teaching and helping make sure that kids show up to their matches, but also coordinating them and making sure that they have leagues to play for and communicating with the school and everything that they're doing, right? That's another piece of like collegiate esports has got another 50 collegiate jobs in that same mindset open right now. Coaches, directors right now. We've got collegiate esports, NJCU's hiring production staff as grad students, right? You want to get jobs? Collegiate esports is massive for what we're kind of building out. And it's not one school isolated doing this. This is literally 250 schools are all trying to figure out what does the value for competitive esports mean for us. Not only that, you want to work in game design. Prof. Boo Boo talked about that earlier. You want to work in game law, right? That's going to be something that's going to have its whole own facet, which is going to be built off of copyright law as well as a whole bunch of other things, right? InVerum works for ESL. ESL is one of the biggest in terms of competition for on a fairly regional scale, but like just amazing kind of competition. I've competed in some ESL events before, like just high level stuff. Right? It's not just 1, 2, 3 things that you got to do. Like, pick a job in the real world. Engineering. VCT puts on events. They hire 20 engineers to make sure that everything's set up ready to go before their events, right? If you want to work in esports, it's not just limited to being a professional gamer or doing the thing that 7, 8 years ago was the only thing that you thought was available, right? We got casters, we got observers, we got producers, right? We hire all these people at the NECC, but there's so many jobs out there and there's always ways to tie it in. But if you have that experience on a collegiate level, especially at a club program where most of these jobs are done, and you're figuring it out on your own, right? And Vernon quickly talked about it. Show me your experience. What have you done and what did you do it with, right? If you had $1 million, great. You could probably figure it out pretty easily. But if you did it on a club budget, that shows some real dedication that not many people get to see.
And I guess a question for, Paul first here. Do you see the influence of leagues such as ESL, or I guess for Caleb afterwards, with the NECC? Do you see that having an influence on participation in these competitive esports clubs? I mean, Caleb would see it a little bit more in regards to NECC club teams joining NECC, but from ESL, do you see the growth from collegiate to sort of these more semi-pro, amateur to even pro teams?
Sure. I mean, obviously ESL we function a lot in Counter-Strike, which is less of a popular collegiate title, so we probably see it less. But obviously we do host tournaments for I think 100 games at any given time. We did run a collegiate program at ESL for a bit. COVID kind of had some fun with that. But we actually worked with Riot on the League of Legends side, and we have definitely seen examples of players making that transition from collegiate to pro. Though it's interesting now because we're actually seeing players come back now, players who went pro at like 16. I can think of some examples in Rocket League who are now like, should I use this to go back to school and take my professional Rocket League skills and now being able to get like a full ride score, a pretty impressive scholarship for that. So it's interesting how we're actually seeing it go both ways. Players being able to leverage the skills they garnered, particularly on the pro play side, and level that up. I can think of a couple of examples of players who were discovered in collegiate environments, and also the other way, players saying like, look, I have the skills. Now I'm going to get the education to back it up and give myself some insurance going forward as well. So I'm not just relying on being a pro gamer when I'm 24 and maybe burnt out. So I think that's 100% cool. And again, ESL's and DreamHack maybe not the best examples of this, but we still do see it for sure.
And of course, Caleb, your opinion on this as well. Then we'll get to you, Professor Boo Boo.
Yeah, I mean, I started at an ESL event. Like, that was kind of the first experience that I had. So getting into esports I can directly tie it to my experience with ESA. But in collegiate specifically, the kind of growth of club programs, but it's just really kind of starting, right? There is currently 1,500 universities and colleges that are accredited right now in the US alone, probably another 700 in Canada, right? And probably another 700 in Mexico, right? All of those schools have the option to compete in esports at some level in the next few years, and only about 450 to 500 have some kind of jump into this yet. So there's a lot of options for kind of growth and development within collegiate esports in North America alone. But just kind of getting there and starting it, I couldn't even kind of show you, like, Sacramento State. I know 5 kids from Sacramento State, which is another club program which is really well run. 5 kids from Sacramento State who have all gone and stepped into the real professional industry for esports now because of their experiences at Sac State. And it's just it's amazing to see. I can't even put into words like what the next step for changing the future will be, because when it starts to happen, when it starts to blow up to the point where it's not just, okay, there's 450, 500 schools that are in esports and maybe half of them are varsity, right? The entire esports industry will change because there will be so many more people invested in seeing it go well. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of when, I guess.
Professor Burelli?
Yeah, I would say it's already happening, because to back up like what we just said about some data, we pulled a number about the job market for Canada and the US, and after 2015 you can see like it's just growing very fast, like the numbers of offers in this field. And like it's also like a lot of companies we don't know about, or I mean like the general public don't know about. Of course you have Facebook, Google, you have Ubisoft, but you also have like many other companies that we don't know. Tencent was there, of course. Riot Games was there, of course. But after 2015, it's just growing so fast. So the market is already like expanding a lot. And yeah, our students should really consider this. For my class, I was looking at job offers for lawyers. I could find like an opening in Shanghai, I think, to play for Tencent Riot Games on the League of Legends game, for the League of Legends game. So it's even a worldwide market now. So it's quite exciting for students. And something I want to add on this aspect is that what I feel that sometimes people don't realize what it means to be like a good player at these games. When you reach a level like even diamond. I think it's already like quite high. And you look at what percentage you are among the player of the game. It's amazing. It's huge. And when you reach like master or above, I mean, it's incredible. And people don't even realize what it means. So I can tell you that what I do in my letters is to put it like for the recommendation of the student. I put it and I say like what it means, like to reach this level and how hard it is, because it means you have skills, you have knowledge, you know how to analyze a game. It's not easy at all, and it's working. We have some success with the student like being recruited like either in law firm because they know what it means, or like we had one of your member going to a university in the US with a strong esport program, and I mean in the letter I just like put the focus on our involvement in the esport club. So going through the esport club, it will help you for these jobs and university courses, I would say.
And I guess just to clean up the point as well, some examples from what InVerum was talking about collegiate players going pro and then coming back. One example, Niles from Maryville went pro for Golden Guardians and then came back and decided to compete in collegiate. And who knows what happens with that? Probably the best top laner in collegiate League of Legends right now. So just an example for anyone else out there. But we'll hop on to the next question here. And this one's a little bit of a sort of like a straightforward question. I mean, I think the answer is going to be yes from everyone, but more so the second half of this. We'll start with you, Caleb. Do you see the number of student-run programs changing in the future? And if so, why do you think that will happen?
Two things. It's gonna grow for probably the next 6 years in terms of numbers, but that's just because the scale of things have so much access and room to grow. And then it's gonna start dying. Why? Because most of the schools will start picking up and turning these clubs into varsity, because it's going to be 10, 20, 30 times cheaper to just turn their club into varsity and then build a new varsity program that isn't associated with their club in any regards, right? There was a school that just did this, but University of Alabama is one that we worked with for a little while to try and start that process. And there's a whole bunch of others that are turning into this. SUNY Oswego is doing the same thing. Another SUNY already did this and is turning it into this major program now at SUNY, but SUNY Buffalo is already varsity, and kind of it's just massive. And Vernon was doing the hand thing while I was saying that, but it's going to start out in the next few years very similar. Lots of people are going to try and recreate what uOttawa have, what University of Alabama have, Sacramento State, so on. Right? They're going to start out. They're going to have that first step into collegiate and kind of start figuring out everything. And then they're going to turn around to the university and be like, here's all of the things we learned, right? Here's what we want, and here's what we think we need for the next few years. Can you guys figure that out? And the universities will pick it up slowly and slowly and slowly, and it'll turn into this entire varsity space that's not going to be limited by borders or anything like that. It's just awesome to see.
For sure. And Verum?
Yeah, that was it. That's the correct answer. Not a whole lot more to add. Yep. Going to go up, and then it's going to go down when the universities realize the value. But yep.
Professor Burelli?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you already have like a lot of students playing. You know, I told you like I stopped playing, and I feel like I missed the train. Imagine if I would have started League of Legends in 2012. I mean, imagine where it would be. So I almost feel like I missed the train, and it's already very big, and I just see it growing because we have more and more students playing. The staff as well. You cannot imagine how many people from the staff is also playing. And maybe it's some people that will interact with the club at some point very soon. So no, I don't see it changing, of course. And now it's just like the main point is like universities to understand like the value of it. But I actually feel it will become, and it might become bigger than sports. And because we just start like discovering it, I can see arenas, like you already have arenas in the US, I know, like dedicated to esport. It will come here as well, and scholarship will come. And you know, like you have such a big industry behind it, like scholarship will come and more money will come, and might be bigger than sport at some point. So let's see.
And I mean this actually ties in really well into our final question here, which we can talk about for, I feel like, forever in that sense. How does funding improve a student-run club, and what would be sort of the next step to becoming a fully fledged varsity program? We'll start again with you, Professor Burelli, with this one.
It's a tough one. It's very hard to decide like how to use money. I can tell you, I'm with a badminton club as well. It's tough to see like where to invest. But usually what we do as researchers is that when you get money, you try to use this money to get more money. So some of your money should be spent maybe to find new sponsorship as well, and the rest I get to organize event to be more known. And but again, like to go with one of what the other panelists said before, creating quality content would be like really good and would attract a lot of people. So I think it should be on this as well. And or you could be like, you could go all in and you could say, okay, well, invest the money to participate in a really big tournament every year and to sponsor your best players to get a lot of exposure with this. But it's a tough question. It's a very tough question.
And Caleb, I guess next to you.
Yeah, I'd say first step is find places to play. If you can direct your focus of the people competing in your clubs, whether it's internally or externally, that's a major first step for those teams. And there's lots of free options out there. CEA offers free options. Star League offers free options this year. UGC has offered free options in the past and will continue to offer free options in the future. NECC actually currently offers a free option, but the paid options are the next step in that kind of situation. And if it makes sense to do so, ECAC, NACES Varsity League, and ECC stuff, all that kind of stuff makes a lot of sense to take that first step in. And those aren't backbreaker burdens, right? They're probably the mix of all of those is $7,000 maximum, right? That's US, not America, not Canadian. But the next step would be really to try and figure out, okay, like Prof. Boo said, what is going to bring in the next step? How are we going to make more money with our money that we currently have, right? Creating content, not even needs to be quality content, because most collegiate esports programs don't even create content. So creating something that you can continually use and develop is going to be something that is really available to all collegiate programs with the access for Twitter and social media that we have today. This kind of setup doesn't cost a lot to do. It asks like InVerum, Prof. myself, all of us are doing this because we think it's a good step for uOttawa to help in kind of doing their next step. So have something to do, I don't know, create content, right? It doesn't need to be quality. You can figure out the quality part after the fact, but it needs to be content that someone can look at and say, okay, I'm learning, right? And then from there, just kind of develop out your program internally, make sure that people know not only what's going on outside the program, but also inside the program. Everyone kind of learns that kind of scalar fashion and kind of develops out a program that the school would want to pick up, right? Because eventually the goal is to have the school foot the bill and you guys just kind of work within that, especially in the varsity programs and how that's kind of going. But if you can find a way to recommunicate everything to professors who know nothing about esports and directors that know nothing about esports and have them eventually decide, okay, here's your budget for the year, that would be the ideal goal. So now you've got to figure out not only how to create value and make more money, but also create that value for the school and have the school eventually say, this is something that we're willing to pick up and turn into varsity. And that's something that uOttawa's been doing for the last few years as well.
And InVerum, sort of as a follow-up to what they've said as well, what is sort of the biggest hurdle that you see in terms of getting from the student-run program to getting that funding, to getting into a varsity program? What's basically the biggest hurdle that clubs like ours, like many other of these student-run clubs, are going to have to face when they need to make that step to become a varsity?
I think it's a few fold, but I think one of them is the value prop. You need to convince the school that this has value across multiple channels. It's not just a recruitment tool, it's not just a content play, it's not just a retention play, but this idea that folks who are involved and participate in collegiate esports are smart, because it's true. I mean, you look at like the ratio of like, because I remember when we did collegiate at ESL, I would look at the majors of the students who were competing, and it was like computer science, engineering, like fluid dynamics, like crazy stuff. You know what I mean? And consistently, like hard science or equivalent STEM or just like poli sci, like a lot of like intensive courses. You're going to be attracting smart people to your university with these programs, and then convincing them to make it established. I mean, I think one of the best examples of a school that really took the money they had and ran with it, you have to look at UCI as an example, because obviously Mark Debbie and the work that all of them have done over there. I mean, obviously NVIDIA is down the road for them, so it's a lot easier to get NVIDIA in to come in and sponsor their space. But if you can convince them to give you the funding on something that's going to end up being neutral, if you can convince them to give you the money to spend on a land center that you can then also charge for, that can also operate as a business, and suddenly you're operating a business within the confines of this that's also supporting your collegiate esports program, but that's also hopefully bringing that money back in somewhat. You can have a setup there to train on the production side of things. I mean, there are a few schools that have done this, and the success rate has been incredible. They're bringing students out consistently. There's the community aspect of things as well. So I think if you can show them those examples and again list all those statistics that we've heard here in terms of retention and bringing in new players and the value of this and the idea that, yeah, I do agree. I'm not sure it may take 50 years to outstrip traditional sports, but it is going to be on par with it, not that far away. When we look at the viewership metrics and how things are trending in esports compared to traditional sports, especially with the aging population. I think if you can combine all of these in a salient way and present it intelligently, there isn't unless you have some like just real big boomer energy in that university, like they're going to see the value of what you're bringing to the table, and I think they'd be hard pressed to sort of say no to bringing that club to the next level.
And Professor Burelli had something to add on to that.
Yeah, maybe it's a question, or I'm just wondering, like, if you need like the university to back you up and to help you with the varsity part, or if you have examples of clubs that just grow by themselves, and like on the side of the university almost, because we talk about varsity, and I can tell you about the varsity club for the sports services, and it comes with a lot of control as well and a lot of pressure. So it's not for every club, and you need money in the bank. You need to sell tickets, like you need to do a lot of fundraising. So it comes with a lot of limits as well. So I'm just wondering if you are able to be a club, like a bigger club, more money, but just by raising money by yourself, managing this money. And of course, if we are talking about building a space and stuff, the university has to be involved. But let's say you get some sponsorship to participate to big events. Do you actually need the university? Or should you even try to get the university on board? I'm not actually sure.
I know Gloob's going to have some opinions on this, but I do want to jump in because I have a very interesting example. So the team that won Heroes of the Dorm, the last one that I cast, I think it was the last one, Laval, wasn't associated with their university, and the university did not allow us to use the school marks on broadcast. They weren't allowed to be Laval. They weren't allowed to be we had to get really weird in how we had to talk about them because the school basically disavowed them. It is there is especially in the States, when you're talking about like your Pac-12s and your Big Tens, there is 100% an intrinsic value, especially when it comes to the media rights side of things, that you will only be able to get if you're associated with the university. Yes, there are those additional pressures, but I think it should be the eventual goal of every single school to try and elevate themselves into this varsity program, because if you don't, it opens up so many hosts of problems. You have to fight your own school as much as you have to fight for it. You know what I mean? And it becomes this very strange dichotomy, and I wouldn't want that on anybody.
Yeah, the same thing's going on with UC Davis right now. They don't have access to use their school's logos and trades and stuff like that, but we had to get special permission to get the use of their name. So we get to use their name on our broadcast and all that stuff. Instead of saying esports at UC Davis single time, we can just say UC Davis, right? So stuff like that does happen, and that is a barrier. I will say this: I've seen enough club programs and varsity programs to know that at this point there are some schools that will put on extra restraints, is the best way to say it, that will limit their varsity program and how they can develop and stuff like that. And those schools are the ones that be the ones that leave most often. Out of the 5 schools that I've seen kind of come and go in the collegiate esports space with the varsity team, 4 of the 5 of them had unnecessary restraints on their teams, and one of them had their school go under. So it's like, what can you kind of do in that kind of case? But the varsity path for collegiate esports and kind of what it does will eventually have totally different rules, restrictions, and guidelines, because there will be regulators in the space that show this is what we need. Here's how you go about it. Here's what you should do. Here's the average salary and stuff like that. Like the same way the NCAA and Canada Youth Sports has been doing for the last few years at this point, in terms of here's what it looks like, here's what you should do. We'll eventually have an esports in the same kind of fashion. The ACC is kind of stepping into this kind of light of here's what we can see is happening. Here's the information for it. Like go work with this. Please use this information, right? And we've seen Chris Postella post his stuff on kind of the collegiate esports summary and the average salary and stuff like that. I have seen directly as a cause of that the average salary raise on most of my schools by about $4,000 to $5,000 because the document is out there, just out there, right? Collegiate varsity is going to be tough to navigate and eventually get into, and schools will throw obstacles that are unnecessary or regardless just straight up dumb in some cases. But the goal to get there and kind of the drive to get there is so much more valuable because not only do you have to not worry about most of the major large things, but you get access to resources like the finance office and kind of other resources that the school will offer as a direct cause of being a part of the association with the varsity program. That's going to be huge and hugely valuable. Yeah. Once we get to the point that collegiate has its own rules and guidelines and drug policies and all these extra things, is going to be when the schools stop putting unnecessary restrictions on varsity programs and will start allowing these varsity sports programs to follow their regulators instead of the regulators that they think they should be following, like U Sports and the NCAA.
For sure. And sometimes these obstacles can be difficult because they sort of fall into the law aspect of it. And perfect for Professor Burelli, who does work in esports law. In regards to the laws surrounding esports, what is the biggest hurdle on the legal side of everything to becoming a student run club? If there is any, like, is it a case of legality? Is it a case of just like the school not willing to do it? What's the biggest hurdle there?
Are you asking me, Adam?
Yes.
Sorry. I think I think it's not legal. I think it's more like to convince people that it's serious and the potential and see like what it could bring us for the future. You know, I often tell my colleague I'm so sad because I see the potential of our students and I know that some of them will work in the field and they will be extremely successful. And I'm so scared of the day where we'll knock at the door and be like, hey guys, you are please come back, please give us some money and stuff, you know, because it's what we do at the university. And then the student will be like, what did you do for me when I was at the university? So please know that we try to do a lot. But I think the biggest obstacle for me is like to convince like people that it's good, that we should invest in it and that it's ready. Because I feel sometimes that some of my colleagues thinks it's not ready yet. It's not happening, you know, and they tell me like, oh, we have time. We can wait, you know. They are telling me about projects that needed 20 years to be developed. I'm like, guys, 20 years ago, the game I'm telling you about didn't even exist. And it's just getting bigger and bigger. Do you realize like people like fill stadiums for events like this? So for me, it's to convince people to invest. And once you have said this, you know, we are talking to central administration, of course, but you have other people you can talk to. And some people are very open. So it's just to find the right people to start somewhere. And with the club, you already started something amazing and it's just growing. Now it's like, what is the next best thing to do? Is it to get a space? Is it to get special events? And it's hard to define. But I think getting a space is important. But yeah, convincing people is key, I feel. But there is no legal problem. It's very easy, actually, I feel.
InVerum?
I think to follow up on that, and I think there's a perception, and I can understand where this idea comes from. But I think one of the single, and we haven't talked about it yet, but I think one of the single biggest hurdles that needs to be overcome is the idea that video games are going to make students worse students. They spend all day playing video games. I mean, there are universities that have the VPNs. They have it blocked. They have games blocked. You had to, whatever you had to, or like, sorry, you had to VPN your way out of it. I remember like on the school networks and stuff. I think even when I was at uOttawa, we had to like jerry rig our way around it, you know, or something crazy to try and even be able to play games on this. Because I was in Brooks my first year, and I think we had to like get creative with our Wi-Fi routers or something. And it was. I think this perception still exists in a lot of. You would never say that to a student who plays football. You would never say that to a student who plays hockey. Oh, you're spending too much time playing hockey, or it's bad for you. Or if they do, they don't care because they're a jock and it's fine. But suddenly a kid spends, 20 hours a week playing Call of Duty or League or something, and it's bad, even though I would say in a lot of ways those games are way more mentally stimulating, and there is a lot more cross-functional um, applications for that skill set and knowledge. Especially if I've seen the spreadsheets of some of these teams and some of these players, the way they analyze statistics and everything like that. And yes, you can definitely still get that in traditional sports, but I think that's honestly one of the single biggest hurdles we'll need to overcome is this idea that video games are a waste of time.
Caleb?
Yeah, and Vernon put it properly, but the the mentality, right? It's one of those things, and kind of it started. The whole conversation started to go there when Prof. Bubu's on the end of Prof. Bubu's thing, but it's a big politics game, right? The average, and we've started doing a little bit of statistics diving on this, but in the 20 schools that we've done digs on, the average age of a university staff is 46. Most people don't know that, which means you have to not only dictate what esports is, but what the value of it is to a population that might not actually have kids that are even competing in esports or trying to do esports. And those that do likely don't have kids that are young enough to be able to like manage in that kind of regard, right? So when we started kind of talking to a couple of these schools, we haven't said, and this was first school we ever picked up was Carroll University, and the coach was in there, and I was talking to him a lot, but also I had to say what was esports to a school faculty that was 65, right? Like, it's one of those things that not only you have to dictate to the school what the value is intrinsically and what the value the students actually have, and all the things that are intangibles that you see only esports do, like the amount of the data work. And InVerum, you touched on this quickly. My data guy, who's played in esports for a long time, does sheets unbelievable to me. And I was doing statistics and stuff like this, but this guy's 10 times better than I think I'd ever do. And he does it because he wanted to become an analyst for a while, and he wanted to do that kind of stuff. And he does Wikipedia stuff, and he just does it because he enjoys it, right? But you don't see that in sports. You don't see some sports guy going through and grabbing his goals and assists and his score percentage and his shot percentage in hockey. I never did that. I played hockey for 20 years, right? So kind of going into explaining to the average university staff like what the value is, and again playing that politics and having the kind of full story of like, here's what it is, but here's what esports does, and here's why this shouldn't be a bad thing, and here's all the media stuff that you've heard, and here's why most of that isn't accurate, right? There's two stories going on in the media. One is esports is a $2 billion industry or $1 billion industry, which most of us make fun of at this point. The second is that esports is causing school shootings in the US, and esports is the reason that the grade point average in the US has dropped by 0.5%, right? And yeah, that's a story, but it's not because of gaming. It is because of totally other factors that are not directly linked to esports, and most of them have been disproven. It's just about the fact that most people only see the headlines, right? No one really dives into the statistics except for the guys that are sitting in this kind of situation where we have to dive into those stats because we constantly have to disprove that, and we constantly have to show schools what the values, we constantly have to show teams what the values, sponsors, et cetera, right? And because we have to constantly go and dive through these conversations and make sure that these statistics are known and these values are known, we have a kind of a different outlook on it. And that's why these panels are kind of created, so that we can show other people, hey, here's what the outlook of collegiate esports is. Here's why you should do your collegiate esports program. Here's what the value that brings that we can't even say to you yet because it's so new, right? All I know is that every intern that comes through my program gets a job in esports after their internship program or gets a job in sports, right? And that's great. But I can't show everyone what it means to be in esports because we don't really have a long history of what it means to be in esports yet, right? Everyone knows what it means to be in sports. Everyone knows what it means to be an athlete, right? Everyone knows the value of being an athlete, working on a team, the leadership skills that you learn. Esports all has the same things. It's just there's so much other things that we offer that most people don't know about.
And just to hop in here really quickly before we get to you, Professor Bubu, even explaining to my dad about what being an esports caster means and saying, hey, I'm going to be yelling over people playing a video game. And he's like, why would anyone want to watch that? And I'm like, look at this. Here's the stats behind it. Here is LCS finals. Here's 300,000 people watching on Twitch. Here's another 40,000 watching live in person. There is a market for this. And it's, I think I'm starting to get to him just a little bit. They're starting to come around and understand it, but it's about keeping your mind open in that sense. And Now we'll get to you, Professor Burelli, and you want to follow up on that as well?
Yeah,
It's a seamless sport.
Yeah. And just to, we talked about creating content, but you also need to start gathering. I mean, you do it already, like, but gathering data and keeping it like in an archive, and show it to people when each time you can. Like you're having a meeting with the administration, you can tell them about this. Like, look at the league, look at how many teams, look like the value of it, and you need to do this because it's like. It's I know sometimes it's exhausting, but keep explaining it. And you can also make it very funny, because like you mentioned the tournament, Adam. Playing the tournament with you guys made me realize like the gap, and the level it means, and like how smart the people playing at this level are. So it's all of this like helping. So you also need to recruit allies at the university, and so there will be ambassador for you. Like I can tell you at my faculty, they are so tired of me like talking about video games and like what we can do for esport and stuff. So, and sometimes I'm tired, but every day I'm like, okay, let's do it again. And but if you have accurate data, if you have a lot to show people, it could be videos as well. It could be exhibitions. You could tell people, come play with me, and you will see what it means to play against a pro. It can be like very interesting to show what it means. So yeah, all this kind of stuff you can do to try to overcome these obstacles.
Yeah, and just really briefly to InVerum before we move on.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to point out, my team in Los Angeles right now is hiring for a esports research analyst. I'm going to drop the link to the job post in chat. We are literally looking for someone to go out and analyze esports, put together spreadsheets, look at data. Like, these skills are one-to-one transferable. There is a job opening right now with the largest esports company on the planet right now. So when we say, when you hear this, you go, yeah, sure, it literally one-to-one transfers. These are the kind of people who are looking for, people who have ideally the education as well, but being able to take that education, directly meld it with real life experience and apply it. I mean, that's the dream applicant right there. Someone who is endemic, who gets it, but also has that traditional education and background. That's what we're looking for in esports right now. So
I might have to take a look at that after the stream. Apply myself.
Adam, I'm sorry, Adam. Just I forgot to mention, like, you also need to work your own to build your own network. And I know you are doing it, but keeping like a database, like of your alumni. Where are they? Keeping in touch with them. So because these people will be your allies. The university is building its own list, but they won't give you access to it. So build your own. Like all the students leaving, graduating, keep it for you. And keep in touch, where are you? Because then you can recommend people like, oh, I know someone in UCI. Oh, I know a student who went there. So, it's very important, and it's very important that you keep control over this, because the university won't help. Like for the badminton, if we want to send an email to our alumni, we need to ask them. And we don't even know if they do it. So do your own. It might not be perfect, but do your own and keep it updated. It's very important.
And really quickly to Caleb before we move on.
So I've said a couple times it's the politics of collegiate esports, but grabbing references, grabbing people that and grabbing all this kind of stuff, exactly like Prof. Boo said, I've been used as a reference for students that are running club programs that know what I do as a job reference for their next job in collegiate or in professional multiple times. I think 9 times at this point, for kids that are they're graduating and they're done running their club program, and now they need a reference that can pick up the phone and say what they did and just how much they did over the 4 years or 2 years that they were working on this club program. And that is something that's so valuable, but it's not just local, right? I was born and raised in Toronto. I've referenced a guy that grew up in New York. I've never met the kid in person before, but I knew the work he did, and I knew how much he did to make sure that program was valuable in this space. And it's not just one of those things. Again, using Andrew as a great case here. If he ever asked me, I'd say yes. If he ever asked Jacob, I guarantee you, Jacob, my business partner, he'd say yes. And it's not just one of those things. I bet you the director for Collerton, I bet you the director for Durham, all of them would say, yes, I'd use you as a resource because I've talked to you before. I know the work that you do. I've seen the work that you do on the outside, and I know just how much effort you put into this kind of situation. And it's not just one kid, right? It's all the kids playing, all the kids competing, all the kids that I've played and competed against in collegiate. All of them sit in the same kind of thing. Keep those contacts. Make sure that you remember those people, because all of them are valuable resources in the future, especially once they all get into the industry.
For sure. Great discussion, honestly. Just being able to see how much there is to esports, right? Just being able to delve into all of the nooks and crannies of it. But got a final question here before we get to sort of the Q&A session here. We've got a couple of questions that were sent in from Twitch chat, but just going to go with this really simple question. We've got 3 esports. We've got League of Legends, we've got Overwatch, we've got, what's the other one we said? Rocket League. Pick one to play, pick one to produce for, and pick one to cast for. We'll start with InVerum.
I don't want to play Overwatch, but I would be the best at Overwatch. I think I was Diamond at one point. I have casted League professionally, so I will say League. I guess on casting the Rocket League is it, and then producing Rocket League is fun. So I'll go with that. Could you not have given us Valorant instead? Anyway, that's fine.
If you want to throw Valorant in there somewhere, go for it. Go for
We'll
it.
just swap it. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Let's do it.
Yeah. Professor?
I'm sorry, I just played League. It's too much. I can't do more. I mean, I cannot even play my Nintendo Switch anymore. League is too much, and then like the learning curve is too big. I mean, so I didn't even try Rocket League. I know it's very good, but I didn't try. And the shooting one, it's too stressful. It's too stressful. I'm too old for this. You know, I actually stopped playing video games when Counter-Strike started to be like a big thing, and when we started to have the high-speed internet, which was nothing like compared to what you know. So I stopped like because it was too hard. You know, I was playing online and you had this kid of 12 years old killing you and like laughing at you, and like I was like, I need to stop this. There is no ranking, there is no like matchmaking, so I stopped at this point. So just League. I mean, I would cast. No, cast is hard actually. I know it's very hard, Adam, and you do a great job actually. So it's yeah. That's it, I guess.
I guess Professor Burelli just going league for all of them. All of the above. But Caleb.
I'm gonna have to side with InVerum. Valorant should be on this list.
Okay, we'll put it. You know what? Overwatch 2 still a lot to learn there. We'll have Valorant over Overwatch.
Yeah, I played Overwatch, so I'm still gonna kind of use this. If I had to, I would cast Rocket League. Rocket League is a lot of fun to play. If there's a lot of good plays going on, cast Rocket League. My personal favorite right now is Valorant. I'm part of the top 15,000 players. I would love to continue playing Valorant, and I would love to start working on actually playing at a competitive level again. So Valorant would definitely be the play, and then produce would be League of Legends. I don't know crap about that game. All I know is how to win, how it works. Adam was talking in the before show. We were watching Western and Western's win over Grandview and CLOL, and I'm just like, I have no idea who you're talking about scaling. But I know exactly what you mean when Western wins, when Western goes and takes those. So I can go and help produce, but playing, no shot.
Can I chime in though? Like, for the record, ladies and gents, like a lot of the folks who produce unless you're watching a franchise league, a lot of the folks who are producing the top esports broadcast that you watch don't know jack about that game. No, seriously, like guys,
no, it's true.
If you're watching a broadcast that's produced by ESL North America, by NGE Esports and Esports Engine, any of these, a lot of them use freelancers, like LA freelancers, which means they're folks who do like sports events, UFC events, who do all sorts. Like they don't know the game, or they'll work a ton of different games. Like we'll run, 15 different games out of our studios in a year. So, like, don't think you need to be an expert at every single game to produce it. Absolutely not. Usually you'll have a game expert in the booth with everybody else who can help translate, okay, this team's going to win, prep graphics, like that kind of stuff. Don't feel like you need to be an expert at every single one. Come on, that's not. I've casted games I've never played.
A great example. A great example is what I did at the start of the NECC. I was producing all 5 games, about 20 to 30, maybe 40 hours a week on the high end. But I was producing all 5 games. I knew crap about Rainbow Six, although I was an FPS player. I knew crap about League of Legends, but learned exactly how the general game works because I had to produce it for a little over 400 hours. And I knew Overwatch, I knew Valorant, and I knew Rocket League, and all 3 of those I had personal tie-ins with. but I didn't know anything about the other two games. I learned how to produce them. I learned how to make sure that the graphics were right. I learned how to make sure I knew what teams were going to win and how they were going to win. And all of our producers, we currently have 6 active producers as well as a production manager that's on full time. And all of them have their games that they understand and have their games that they don't. Most of our guys come from the Rainbow Six scene, actually, and produce games that they've never seen before, never played, never touched. Tofu's a great example of this. He's never played a minute of League of Legends, but he produces League of Legends because he learned how to produce it, and it makes good money to produce games that you don't always know, right?
Yeah. That's doing casting. Sometimes you got to produce your own streams as well. Remember the first time I did a Valorant stream, I clicked the button that followed a projectile or something. It took me halfway across the map on a Viper wall. Didn't know what happened after that, but sometimes you just figure it out on the fly. But no, just wanted to have a little bit of a fun one for the last question there. But we've got a couple from Twitch chat here, and first one I'm going to pull here says, I started playing esports games when 5 friends would form a team for a weekend and play for fun, win or lose. It seems now that the role of the esports club, at least at uOttawa, is to put together the best, highest skilled teams with the sole intent of winning. Does anyone on the panel think there is space for these for fun teams to compete in leagues like ESL or the NACC, or how they can maybe make a comeback? I'll just leave the floor open if anyone wants to chime in.
I'll jump in first. uOttawa Gold's currently playing. They're down 5-6 in game 1 against NKU. These teams neither of them are highest level. Actually, both of them sit in our challengers division, which, they play top level. Probably every single player on that field is top 4%, maybe top 5% in their game. But that's not the only Valorant teams. The Valorant team that I helped coach and play for this semester, the average player was on the bottom 5%. We got a solid season. We went 4-5 in the season, and we went into playoffs and lost in the first game after a really 2.5-3 hour long best of 3. All 3 maps were played. All 3 maps were played basically OT. Just a grueling match. But it's like, that's a silver level gameplay match. It's not the high level that uOttawa Garnet's doing. So there's a spot for them, and there's going to be a huge spot for them in collegiate in the next few years, and that's going to develop over a massive time when you start to see a divisional structure pop up and schools focus on specific teams and team development, but also getting students into the professional industry, not as players, but as staff and as people that are going to help develop this industry, not as the professional player. And you're going to start seeing that a lot with Garnet's third team, or uOttawa's third team, uOttawa's fourth team. All of them are probably going to jump into the industry, but they know what the hell they're talking about, and they've been a part of it, and they've been a part of developing it. And I think that that's really, there's a spot for it, and there will continue being a spot for it. And it's just about finding the right home and finding the right people you want to do it with, and a good spot here at uOttawa under Juicy Vinyl's direction is just kind of build your team. Find a team on campus, 5 guys, come to Juicy, say you want to play in some competition, and I guarantee you there's a spot that you'll be able to play for.
For sure. Anyone else have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think the priority should be those people. I mean, the priority shouldn't be building. It's if you make it, they will. If you build it, they will come. The priority shouldn't necessarily be to like, oh, we're only looking for that top 1%. We're only looking to put a roster of 5 players together, and no one else matters. No, the priority, and I said this, 40 minutes ago at this point, is the community. And whether that is strictly within your school and it's fun LAN nights, and you put your name into a pool and the auto assign you to a team, and you've got like, you either come and play together for the first time, or it's online and you do in-house leagues, or you extend it. Maybe it's like an Ontario only thing, and you just like the different schools connect and you could do stuff. Or it's things like our DreamHack Community Clash stuff. We do Valorant tournaments every week, where you can just sign up as an open play, anybody with your team, and compete. I think that honestly should be the goal for a lot of these clubs, is just it's a looking for group experience essentially. The first job I ever had out of university was working in marketing at a startup, and out of London, and then out of Waterloo. Was looking for group app. We onboarded 1 million users in a year and a half. There is a market for people just looking to connect and find folks to play with and hang out. And we went and grabbed a beer afterwards. We went down to Father and Sons, probably. I can't remember where it was. We went down and grabbed a beer, after our game nights, and it was a ton of fun. And I think for a lot of folks, that is way more valuable than trying to compete top 1% in C-Law or whatnot. I think for a lot of folks, just having that outlet to find and connect with people and play truthfully, if your club isn't doing that, then something's off, because I think that honestly is the single biggest value prop of anything for the students, is just connecting and having fun and making friends.
For sure. And Professor Burelli, anything to add on to that?
Yeah, no. I would love to have like more of these events. Like the day you have a space on campus, I would be so happy after a day, like to drop in at the at the, I don't know how you will call it, but in the space, and to play some games. Yeah, it would be so nice to be able to do this. And each time you do it in-house, like I'm so attracted to go play. Again. So it's quite nice. So I really like it, and yeah, it's not about competition. It's like I'm just happy, and I feel privileged to play with some of the players.
And just for information out there as well, I mean, this season for NECC, we had the uOmega lol Pog Stars, probably the best name and we could have thought of, but it was just a bunch of execs coming together and having some fun. So there is still opportunities out there for anyone who's interested in it. And even next year, CLOL is introducing a new sort of more for fun developmental bracket where every school can submit their main roster. Every school can submit secondary, tertiary, however many airy rosters, and you can just join for fun. So, if the uOttawa J team or something wants to take part in League of Legends, by all means, get your 5 friends together and go and compete. So there is that opportunity there. Anyways, another question that I've got here. Which parts of traditional sports do you think esports teams should implement, and which parts of traditional sports do you think should be left behind? I'm going to leave the floor open to this one again.
I actually posted a tweet about this last night. The mentality of collegiate sports needs to die immediately. Someone from this school's janitorial staff came up to me and said, this school will never allow esports to surpass collegiate football in terms of player base or student base, because it just can't happen. Football can't be upstaged. I would drop that mentality tomorrow. But the focus, the drive that these athletes have, and the kind of overall push towards collegiate sports, and kind of the real camaraderie that these sports actually do end up having over the years, that we're starting to see build on campuses through esports, needs to come to esports. There's a lot of times where people just don't care about the University of the Strat. I mean, look at half of Grandview's roster today came from Columbia College, because Columbia College, St. Thomas has a player that came from Columbia College. The roster split and they all went to different universities and they didn't care about it, right? I would love to see the same kind of love and spirit that University of Alabama gets for football on our collegiate rosters as well. I'd love to see that come up in the next few years.
Anyone else?
I'm going to take this question in sort of the spirit, I think, as if it was intended, because it doesn't actually specify collegiate esports.
Yeah, we'll put in collegiate sphere. We'll specify.
Darn it! That wrecks my point.
okay, never mind. We'll just go. Yeah.
City-based franchises. Those are dumb. Don't do them. It was one guy's idea, and it got way out of hand. Most people don't know that. It was one guy's idea, and it got way out of hand. Don't do it anymore. It's a dumb idea. There's no reason to tie your massive global fan base to a single city. It's not going to generate the same kind of attention. You're doing yourself a disservice. Stop doing it. In the sense of collegiate, I think that is the only way it can work, is if you are tying it to something in which you have a monetary vested interest. You are paying money to attend that school, which means you are, in a lot of ways, a captive audience. Let's be real. You are invested quite literally in that. I still remember, I think the only uOttawa football game I ever attended was the first one of the year versus Carleton. I was the only one I was during one-on-one week or whatever. It's the only one I ever went to. That's investment. You know what I mean? I would never have gone to that any other way if it wasn't for the fact that we were playing I learned our crosstown rivals in Carleton. So I think generally do away with it. But if you're we need to do more to promote our collegiate esports teams locally. Are there LAN cafes in Ottawa that we can be doing stuff with, that we can be partnering with? Like, are we not doing a Smash tournament at our local, whatever, every Friday night or Saturday night? Sorry, maybe not Friday night. That's for Magic. Let's be real. But for a lot of folks, like, Saturday nights, Smash locals. I'm working with a couple schools down in Dallas right now, because DreamHack Dallas is coming up, and they do it every single week. And they have dozens or hundreds of players turn up every single week because they are invested in their local community. And once you get local businesses on your side, again, I literally walked by Shopify every day on the way to work when I was interning, when I was at school, when I was at Engineers Canada. Come on, guys! Like they literally sponsor StarCraft players and StarCraft teams, like other teams. Like, come on, we need to be doing more of that. Work with your local businesses, work with local entities, but drop. Once you get past collegiate, just ditch it. It ain't working. It ain't working.
No more Toronto Raptors. Make it the I don't know, the Rogers Raptors or something like that tied to a company. But Professor Burelli, you have something to add as well?
Yeah, I mean, we need a Panda game. We need a Panda game at TD Place, and like to have event as big as this.
Yes.
And you know, I'm telling you this, and I'm not even kidding, because the TD Place is interested. You know, they know that the future is also esport, so they want to start doing this kind of event. So and it's what I want to see, like more show, more like you know, like I don't know if you ever went for a basketball game at uOttawa. It's not a lot of public actually. So, but if we could take this for the esport, could be big. And I want a Panda game. I want a Panda game for esport. Would be so nice.
You know, you get Panda game for football. You've got Capital Hoops for basketball. Maybe you get the Poro games for League of Legends or something like that. But definitely things to keep in mind. And Carlton, as much as we love to hate you, you're in for it. Battle of Ottawa. Let's go. Let's run it that way. But final question that I've got here is it's actually a quote from earlier. So InVerum said it best when he said we need to break through the mold of quote unquote boomer mentality. What does the panel think is the most effective way of breaking through that sort of old school mentality and showing the university that it's more than just a group of kids playing video games? How do we show that there is more to esports?
I think one thing you can do is, again, it's like show them like what is happening, like show them what you know, something that changed my mind about League of Legends, because I didn't tell you this, but the first time I saw League of Legends on TV at a friend's place, I was like, what is this stupid game? I will never play this. It looks so ridiculous. You cannot even control the minions. It's so stupid. 2 years after, I watched the documentary on Netflix, League of Legends: The Origins. And then I was like, oh, bloody hell, I missed like 10 years of my life, and I need to catch up on this because the phenomenon is too big. So, like, showing this kind of stuff. When we talk to Central Administration, we try to show them like videos from the world, you know, of League of Legends, because you can see the public, you can see like it's very well made videos. So try to tell them like what it is as a social phenomenon. Another way to convince them is to make them play. When I play against your best player, I'm like, okay, these guys are genius. So it's two ways, and I will let my finish.
I agree. We have enough examples out in the world now that we need to show them. TI exists. Of prize pools exceeding $40 million, crowdfunded from players across the world for one single tournament. I mean, when you talk about the scale of the productions, when you talk about the breadth of game titles, when you talk about the number of players, the idea that the gaming industry, gaming is over $110 billion industry. It is the fastest growing entertainment medium on the planet, and esports is only growing as a chunk of that. Again, when you have companies being acquired for over $1 billion already in the space, I think we just need to show them this idea that it's not just kids in their mom's basements computers anymore, showing them what these LAN environments look like, but show them the money, because at the end of the day, money talks. And as much as I hate it, universities are for-profit institutions, and until that changes, we need to show them that there is value in that, and then that we can bring that value in both through exposure from the universities themselves, as well as attracting these new bright talent. And the correlations, again, we can show, but these players are smart. They are they are smart, and the more we can convince them and show them of that, look, we can show them statistics till they're blue in the face. Show them some six sizzle reels. Show them something from Katowice. Show them something from an ESL1. Show them something from Blast, or again TI or Worlds. Show them these videos. Show them what it's actually like and what's actually happening out there in the world. And again, that's what they understand. They grew up, looking on TV in this entertainment. So I don't know. If you can't show them the numbers and you can't show them the video and they're still there, I don't know. I don't know. It just makes me sad.
For sure. Caleb, anything to add?
Yeah, a couple big ones, but the statistics. I mean, InVerum just gonna finish off on this. Just show them the statistics, right? We talked about it earlier. Higher retention rates within esports programs than if they aren't on a normal campus program, right? They're not quite at the athletic program statistics yet, but esports clubs having statistics that are higher than a normal average student, that's something valuable, and people should understand what that means, what the value of that is, and in all honesty, collegiate as a whole recognizes numbers because it's an education industry. When you show them numbers and the numbers are fact checked and shown off in a lot of different avenues, all those things directly link to development within the collegiate esports space. However, the next step, in all honesty, it might be to wait some of these people out. In all honesty, I don't think that this full.
Say it. Want to say
it? I'm gonna say it. I'll be the bad guy. A lot. I mean, I said the average university staff is 46. There's gonna be a lot of universities that will directly butt heads is the best way to say it for a long time here, and there might not be any change for a long time until the people that are already in or around or in the space kind of start taking steps towards getting into these leadership roles and really showing off their knowledge in esports. In some cases, that will change the direct outlook of collegiate esports. It's already happened at a couple schools that I've been a part of. A kid, 26-year-old, got a job. He's now the associate dean of sports, something in line with like the athletic program. And he's like, I'm building an esports program. I've got this budget for development that we get every year and no one spends it. I'm building an esports program and I'm going to use the entire budget for development that we use on sports because we're not using it. Let's use it on esports. So in some cases, it just takes the right people getting in the right spots and waiting some of these older generations out in all cases. But no, and seriously, the statistics and knowing your stats and knowing your worth to a school adds a lot of value. And I mean, I've already gone through this with Andrew once. Show your stats, show what you guys do for the university without being asked, and then say, here's what we could do if we were asked, right?
For sure. Professor Burelli had something to add on just briefly here?
Yeah, very briefly, like your network as well, because if you have people who are successful in the field, ask them to come back and to talk to the dean and to talk to the administration. And maybe if they can at some point to make them like, oh guys, I might give money, you know, they don't have to do it like, or they can wait. But you can tell them like, yeah, I'm a potential donor, and they will make presentations, they will explain, and there will be ambassadors for you. Adam, if I ever see you on the LCS or LEC, and if you don't come back and try to convince our administration, I'll be very, very mad. So, like something like this, you come back, I will be more serious. I wish you to go there, by the way. But like, if I have a lawyer, like some student becoming a lawyer in this field, I really expect them to come back and to tell my dean, I did the video game class. It was like a trigger for me. I didn't learn merge, but it was a trigger. And then coming back and say like, we need to invest into this. It's not the same way that if I say it, So it's also something like with your alumni, ask them to come back. If you have a champion, Vulcan is not from our university, but he's from Canada. He's from Sherbrooke, if I'm not wrong. Imagine you have this guy. He just won the North American championship. You make him come back to the university, like it would be really good. I mean, so it's also something you can do. It's more on the long term, but something to consider.
Look,
for sure. And
I'll put it out there. Next time I'm back in Canada, set up a meeting. I will talk to your dean. I'm not even joking. I will put this out there now. I will talk to whoever you need me to talk to. I will do it. Because like it's whatever needs to get done, whatever wheels we need to grease. Because I agree 100%. Your alums need to be coming back and doing work. Especially if they've been able to go out.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm coming back in 2 weeks. I'll drive up.
I mean, if you are serious, we can do it.
I'm dead serious.
We can go with the club.
I'm dead serious. I was again. I graduated like 7 years ago, but this idea that you need. Not only do you need ambassadors, but you need champions. You need people who are willing to go to bat for you. And again, I had a great time in the foundation that I built in collegiate esports. I mean, I attended my first esports event in 2008, to put some context in that. So I was already a fan. So the idea that I was able to, there are people that I still like know and connect to my time in uOttawa esports. So like, it's important, especially because again, when I'm reading resumes, and frequently, the ones that are going to catch my eye a hell of a lot more are the ones who have that collegiate experience, separating themselves. Because if you're coming in with no, I'd rather look at someone who has 1 year of job experience and was in their club for 4 years than someone who's coming in from a non-endemic field who may have had 5 years experience. Because I cannot teach you esports nearly as easy as I can help develop the skills of someone who is truly an endemic. And that isn't always the case. It is more so specifically for marketing. I should specify, but specifically how I work in marketing, I would much rather work with a less experienced endemic, particularly those who are coming from the collegiate side.
For sure. And a very final question here before we wrap things up. We'll just keep it nice and short here. What is your favorite esports memory? I'll start from the right this time, Caleb.
I've got to say, the most recent memory that I've got was watching Reykjavik at VCT, the first one. I seriously got chills watching Sentinel 3-0, and on that level of a stage. Competitively, over the years, there's been a bunch, but LAN events, Toronto, Waves Gaming, actually, winning. I didn't even win. We got second place in that tournament. But Nicole, if you, I think you're currently going to university at one of the competing schools. I think York or Toronto, one of the two. But playing with him and kind of competing in that tournament as a duo was just when you get up on that stage and you compete, it's just something different. But when you compete and you win, that feeling just doesn't go away. And I got that feeling in sports, but I never thought I'd get it after tearing my ACL. And that was one of the first few times that I had kind of like felt that after competing in esports, that moment just clicks and something else changes when you're competing like that. Obviously, not everyone can compete at the level that at the highest of high levels and at that CLOL level and at that VCT level, but when you can, I would take that in a stride and do everything in your power to make sure you keep feeling that feeling.
InVerum?
I think it was when I casted the I guess North American, actually, basically World Championship or like semi-world championship for AOV down in Brazil. It was the first time that I'd ever traveled like really overseas. I'd done like LANs in the States and stuff, but it was the first time I'd ever casted a LAN like in a foreign country. And it was something else. The Brazilian fans are nuts. It was experiencing a different culture. It was the travel and staying in like all that I was this is pretty early on in my career, and there was just something magical about that of just going down and feeling the vibe, the energy from that live audience was, I don't know, it was just really cool. It was just super neat.
Professor Burelli?
I think one time I almost killed Gumby during a in-house round. No, I don't have the experience of the other panelists, but I guess like maybe like not the most recent, like the last North American final of League of Legends was amazing. But like maybe like the first real final I watched like when I started to be serious about it, like the G2 FPX was quite nice because it was the first time I was like actually watching the full final, seeing the show, seeing like it was in Europe, it was a EU team against the Chinese team. So it was quite impressive. So it's still a great memory. And I'm not desperate to kill Gumby once.
One day it'll happen. And I guess I'll just add on my memory. I'll sort of go past, present, and future in that one. Past, I guess, as a spectator, 2016 LCS finals in Toronto, Ontario. Got to go down there with some of my friends, 5-game series. That was when Jensen forgot to press his ultimate there. Forgot to press the Echo R, and remember the crowd just went so wild for that. Crazy moments. Present, I want to say, just being able to cast for some of the best collegiate teams in the last weekend on the Unified Broadcast, being able to run Proving Grounds, and just having all of the experiences that I've had in casting. And future, when World Semifinals comes to Toronto in October, I'm going to be there. Soon as that website opens for tickets, I'm getting them for me and all the boys. So we'll keep it there. But regardless, I just want to thank everyone for participating in this. Thank you to our panelists, InVerum, Professor Burelli, Caleb Gloob as well. Thank you so much for joining us on our panel here today. I want to thank as well Andrew and Zach, Thanos and Juicy Vinyl in the back for all of their administrative work with this, as well as to Shanks for making the overlays, Jess for making all of the posters and promotional material, and everyone else who helped out in the organization of this panel. And once again, just thank you very much to everyone who attended this. And we hope that this panel gave a little bit more insight into what esports clubs can accomplish. We've come so far as a club already in the 2-3 years that we've been a amalgamated club, and there's still so much more that we can do still. And hope that for any of the admins from the school, if they were listening in, the athletics department, anyone, please consider what we have to offer for the school, as well as we hope to grow and bring even more to the University of Ottawa. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Cheers. Cheers.